Hello, everybody. Welcome to APL Readers Corner. Thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Elizabeth. My name is Tessie. Today we are talking about the book A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. It's a book I've read before this, and I was really happy to reread it. I know Elizabeth reread it as well. But we're going to be talking about the book, so if you haven't joined us for a Reader's Corner before, we discussed the book, so there will be spoilers. So in case you don't want any spoilers, just know that the book is really great, and then you can join us afterwards on the video. But we choose the books based on their availability on Hoopla. So with your library card, you could check out this book right away using your library card and go to our website, auroralibrary.org, and check it out with your Hoopla card or your library card on Hoopla. Every week we basically review a book from a different genre. So this week was sci-fi, which is why we chose this book. And if you guys want to join us, you can add comments below telling us what you thought about the book. We really appreciate it. We like reading your comments and telling us whether you hate the book or you love the book. So
absolutely, please, it'd be so cool. Okay. So the fun thing about this is this book is sci-fi, like we were saying. This is Sci-Fi Week. Welcome to Sci-Fi Week. It's been crazy. We all want to go to space. So this book will let you go to space, but that's not what sci-fi limits its definition to. So sci-fi often involves strong elements of technology. A lot of people theorize that the very first sci-fi book was Frankenstein, which you may have read in school and which may have made you cry. But now what we have is we have this broader genre where it normally has these strong technology elements that are explained with thorough details, and sometimes they're plausible, and there's hard sci-fi and soft sci-fi, and this varies based on how much technology you're expected to encounter. If you're not super familiar with the genres, let's talk Star Trek, Star Wars. Star Trek has a lot of tech, a lot of science that is going to put in there for some of the seasons, not all. So that would be your hard sci-fi, where you're entering into that with the expectation that you're going to probably be learning something today. And then you have Star Wars, and that is lightsaber swords in space, and that would be the softer sci-fi side of things, where you don't have to encounter a lot of knowledge about here's the new science, here's the new technology. You just get to encounter this evidence of the Force. You can have traveling through space, traveling through time, alternate universes, tampering, reconstructing DNA. You can also cross over to horror, thriller, or suspense genres, depending. Again, Frankenstein, taking a nice little horror left turn there. This book hits on AI, spaceships, and space travel, and is nowhere in the neighborhood of horror or thriller or suspense. It does not want to play with those things there. So it's got some ideas of alternate species, some idea of how the human race might change sociologically, and how it might change technology to encounter a broader world, but not horror. Book summary, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll go into the summary, although I will say, like, with the genre in particular, so I don't know if you play sci-fi video games, but this book
Are we
really...
talking Mass Effect?
Yeah.
Are we talking Mass Effect? Ah, yes.
Yes, Mass Effect. I was like, wow, this is so Mass Effect. If Mass Effect was a book. Not that they don't have books, but anyways. But yeah, this book in particular, so A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, I didn't realize until after I finished the book the second time that I was in my head saying the title wrong the entire time. It's a really long title. I don't even remember how I was saying the title in my head, but it's a really feel-good kind of sci-fi book that reads like a road trip. So you have a bunch of characters in this tunneling, like space tunneling spaceship, and so they use the spaceship, it's to tunnel between different areas of space and link them up. So I thought that was really cool. So the science behind, like, they don't delve into it, but the science of them traveling around space and how they actually do that, I thought was really interesting, because a lot of sci-fi, either they make it up or they don't try and link it to science. So I thought this was really cool. But the spaceship is called the Wayfarer, and they get contracted for a lucrative job to build a space tunnel connecting the GC to the galactic core. And so the GC is like the interplanetary, like, confederation. I forgot when they, like, spelled out what it means, but in my head it's Galactic Commons. I don't know if that's true or not.
I gotcha.
but they're connecting a space tunnel to a new area of space where the GC is trying to negotiate a political alliance. So the small angry planet is where they're going to, and where basically the GC is trying to create this political alliance. And the book focuses more on the different characters than it does the journey. So the last half of the book, or the last small section of the book, is where most of the action happens, but the build up to it, like, you don't read this book to read about the plot, you read it to learn about the characters and the world building. So this book is really great with world building, and it has really great characters. A little bit about the author. And so this book is the first book of the Wayfarer series. And so her whole Wayfarer series has won a Hugo Award. So it's a really good series. I haven't read the rest of it, but I know Elizabeth has read the second book.
I have. I liked it even more than this one, actually, so you should check it out.
I should.
Made me sad, though.
Oh, no. Feel good?
It would still feel good. It would still feel good. It just wasn't these people. It followed different people, and so I wanted it to follow these people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know but that's a different discussion. I was like, I don't know if I like it when they switch to a different characters, because I'd like to continue following these characters, but
oh, that's fair. We should definitely talk about that, because like switching. Yes.
But Becky Chambers, so she has a background in performing arts, even though she grew up in a family that was very space scientist. So her mom, I think, is an astrobiologist, which I feel is really cool. And this book almost didn't get published, so she got a Kickstarter which helped fund this book, but even then, after she got the Kickstarter, like, it didn't work out, so she had to self-publish it in 2004, and then only after she self-published it was it picked up by a publishing house. So I'm grateful that I got picked up, because it's an amazing book. Some of the inspirations behind the book are, like, obviously her family. So she has that really strong science background. So you'll see the science in the book, even though they don't go into it a lot. So it's not very techy like some sci-fi, but you can see that it's there. Like, it's explained really well. But she also said, Chambers said, that it was kind of inspired by Star Trek, Farscape, which I feel like any sci-fi writer in this time period, like, if you like sci-fi, you've watched those shows, so it's going to reflect a little bit in your writing, and I feel like it was kind of reflected anyways, so it just made me love the book more. Her favorite character is Sissix, which will
respect.
Yeah, she's a great character, and she said that she wrote the book as a reflection of a galaxy that she would like to live in, which I would also like to live in that galaxy. Just saying.
Honestly, yeah. Maybe without the small angry planet bit, but the rest of the bits I liked a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like that you said it was like Mass Effect. I didn't even think of that until you said it, but it totally is like Mass Effect. I want to go look and see if Becky Chambers has played Mass Effect 2 now. I bet she has.
I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm playing Mass Effect as a rerun right now, so I was just like playing the game and reading the book, and I was like, these are so similar and awesome.
That's so cool. Social media reviews of the book are all over the place.
Oh, no.
All over the place. So we've got Amazon, where the US didn't like it, and internationally it was liked. So that's interesting. Might reflect different expectations of storytelling. So the US reviews, some of them are overwhelmingly negative because they feel that it is not suspenseful enough. A couple of them say that all the heroes are identified and bound together by the motto, "We celebrate diversity." So they really wanted a lot more white people in space. I am sorry to disappoint you, random Amazon reviewer, Gray Pilgrim. But then we also have the international reviews from the UK. It's just delightful. And from the UK as well. Not a sci-fi fan, but this is the first one I've ever read, and I'm hooked. So that's kind of heartwarming. It's got all over the place. Goodreads, as normal, has a little bit more balanced as far as people's approaches, just because that's where all the book nerds go to review their books. So we've got the variant seems to be between 5-star and 1-star reviews over there. 5-star reviews generally saying that they loved the characters. and 1-star reviews generally saying that they enjoy plot-driven narratives more than character-driven narratives. This is one of the reviews I'm reading, but you are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Okay. So it depends. If you like character more than plot, you will be so happy. If you like plot more than character, you will be less happy. The Guardian says it's a quietly profound, humane tour de force that tackles politics and gender issues with refreshing optimism. IO9 considers it to be exciting, adventurous, and cozy, and comparable to the best space opera universes. And then the Financial Times were jerks. And James Lovegrove described it as sci-fi for the Tumblr generation, a feel-good tale of nonconformity, gender fluidity, multiculturalism, and unorthodox sexual relationships, and perfectly pleasant, but faulted it for somewhat lacking dramatic tension.
I feel like those were all the good things in the books. So
I really do. Kind of like lacking the dramatic tension felt like part of the point.
yeah.
That it was creating this sort of like cozy subgenre, because a lot of sci-fi is stressful. Sometimes I don't want to be stressed. I just want to go to space.
Yep.
And I can't because I don't have a spaceship. So this lets me go to space.
I like the fact that it was very optimistic, because a lot of sci-fi, you'll read it and they'll just be like, oh, everything's gone bad. Like, we're always fighting. Like, aliens hate each other. Aliens hate humans. Humans hate aliens. Like, there's a little bit of that because I feel like it's realistic. But it wasn't
conflict, definitely, but
it wasn't overwhelming, and it wasn't the point of the book. The point of the book was to know these characters and how they interacted and created like a very inclusive environment, which I was like, this is great.
Yeah, definitely. It reminded me the optimism reminded me a little bit of Star Trek, early Star Trek, not reboot Star Trek, but where the assumption anytime a human entered into an encounter with an alien species was, okay, we can make this work. And so that's kind of what I saw reflected here. Also, if nonconformity, gender fluidity, multiculturalism, and unorthodox sexual relationships are for the Tumblr generation, then we should go back and talk to Ursula K. Le Guin, because apparently she invented Tumblr, and I want to tell her so she can sort of rake in that dough right there, because she's got Left Hand of Darkness, she's got so many foundational works. We've got James Tiptree, we've got the whole branch there where sci-fi has been always sort of rooted in questioning what we assume the world has to be like, even if you go all the way back to Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm. That's well said. I totally agree with that.
So, anyway, we both love it. We're biased.
Yes. And no, not end yet. We have some discussion questions.
Yes. So, what do you think about the genre for this one? I don't feel like it's hard sci-fi.
No.
I definitely feel like it's feel-good sci-fi. And at first I was kind of waffly. I'm like, well, maybe it's hard sci-fi. There's space. And then I read one of Becky Chambers' other books, her recent book, To Be Taught of Fortunate, which is hard sci-fi. And I was like, oh, never mind. That one was soft feel-good sci-fi. Back over there. So, what do you think?
Yeah, no, it was definitely, I guess, soft sci-fi. There wasn't an emphasis on the technology, even though it was there. So she didn't try and explain everything. So I really love hard sci-fi just because I like to hear about like all the tech and how, even though I don't understand it, how it would logically go together. But that didn't detract from the book. I just felt like it was a different type of sci-fi. So even though I like hard sci-fi, because there were spaceships, which is just my line, if there isn't a spaceship, I don't like it. But if there's a spaceship,
I can respect that.
Yeah. So I didn't think it was a problem. Like, it's still sci-fi. It's just not. Like, although with the reviews, I don't know if I would call it space opera.
It doesn't feel like a space opera to me. It's not grandiose enough, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like a lot of space opera by Catherine Valente is always my go-to litmus, which is weird because it didn't invent the genre, but it's just like, it's got the glittery disco ball on the cover, and it's like over the top and dramatic and explosive, and I'm like, but here we have a very small circle. Like, I guess you could call it, like, instead of a space opera, a space sitcom, maybe? It has a sitcom vibe.
I think the only space opera-ish part of it is just that the world building is just so good.
That's fair, honestly. The
Yeah.
world building is there. Like, you're
Hmm.
being invited to visit this world, and that's a big part of space opera as a genre. So I can see that. Now that I said space sitcom, I like it even more because it's like
Yeah.
when you watch a sitcom, you just want to sit down with your favorite characters and hear what's going on in their days. And it has some through plots, but it doesn't have an overarching plot. I feel like that's how I sell this book to people who are doubtful about it a lot of the time, is I sell it as episodic. My go-to comparison is Firefly, which feels too small, because I love Firefly, but I feel like this book is doing different things than Firefly was, but they both have the same thing where it feels like it's structured in episodes. Here's the one where in Firefly they do a thief job. Here's the one where in this they stop to talk to some mechanics and fight some bad guys. So not bad guys even, but
Yeah. When I was rereading it this time around, I had forgotten that it was kind of episodic in that way. And so I was kind of delighted that every time I would turn a chapter and I was like, what happens next? I can't quite remember. And then they would focus in on another character and their story. And I was like, oh. And so it's like you get to like learn about all of the characters. So there isn't really a main character. You get to learn about all of them, which I thought was great.
I did think that was great. We were going to talk about that though, the idea of switching characters. I
Yeah.
loved it. I loved being able to shift views from everybody's point of view, back and forth. Like I liked being able to jump into different people's heads.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know though. I feel sad that toward the end of the book, I get booted out of Rosemary and Sissix's heads
Oh,
after a certain narrative event. You don't get to really go back as much. Yeah, and I was like, but let me back. And so that was sad. I understand they were focusing on different things in the story, but it would still have been nice. What do you think?
now that you mention it, I hadn't noticed it, but now that you mention it, I'm like, oh, yeah. It's like when their story built up to the point where it was like not complete, but kind of settled, they kind of drifted away to other points of the story. And I was like, wait, I could have
Come
wanted,
back!
yeah, I want to learn more about like how they're like happy together. That would have been,
Yes!
um, which brings us to one of our other questions. So, some of the people who read this book or review this book regard it as an LGBTQ plus read. Like, do you agree with that?
I feel conflicted. Like, on the one hand, and I think I talked about this two readers' corners ago when we were talking about the All Out anthology. I feel like a lot of books can have LGBTQ elements without being like, okay, this is an LGBTQ read. Here's the box. There you go. Um, Parsing. I feel like, yes, it is, certainly. It has an embrace for queer relationships to self and to others. So queer identity, queer relationships. That is normally associated with an LGBTQ read. I also think that that should just be genre standard for sci-fi, and I realize how controversial that is to say, and that makes me sad. Because if you're writing a sci-fi novel and you're encountering aliens of any kind, and you're like, and they're going to be just like us, then you're on the wrong foot already. You're already wrong. So just take a pause. If you're like, they will also be um, like they will also be sexually dimorphic. They will also like have monogamous pairing. They will also do this. They will also do that. You're being really reductive toward what the human experience looks like for one, and you're being really like dismissive of the entire animal kingdom and the entire fish kingdom and the entire everything kingdom. And you're like, but space will look like me, and like no. So yeah, I do think it's an LGBTQ read, and I also think that it has to be a successful sci-fi novel in this genre. What do you think about that, though?
I agree with you. Like, I would say first and foremost, like, I wouldn't like if I was making a list of LGBTQ reads, I guess I would put it on there, but I wouldn't say
True.
that that sort of book. Like, I would say this is a sci-fi book with element of different, like, it's just a very, because it is sci-fi, there are aliens, and that because only a couple of the characters are humans, like they're going to have relationships with people that aren't necessarily human. So um I thought it was interesting that the different alien species seem to have like genders that were comparable to humans, which I thought was one element that she didn't play around with that much.
I was a little disappointed with that, yeah. And I
Um,
guess we do encounter a limited array, but still, come on, we could have gotten spicier. I do like Dr. Chief. Respect for Dr. Chief. Dr. Chief is a member of
that's
an
true.
alien species whose genders change over the length of their lives.
Yeah, I
So
totally
at one, yeah,
like him. Yeah, he was a him at that point.
he was. I'm also on board with any character whose response to distress is just let me feed you.
Yeah. He wasn't in a relationship though, and so that's why it wasn't highlighted, and that's why I forgot.
That's fair, yeah. Was it
Yeah.
Dr. Chief or Dr. Chef? I guess it was Dr. Chef, wasn't it? Whoops.
When you spell those two words, they kind of look the same. So
They do. I think it was Dr. Chef because he was the doctor and also the chef, and like nobody could say his actual name.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's interesting because all of the relationships in the book were among, for lack of a better term, cisgender couples, as much as that can be understood to be, which was interesting, especially because the main romance in the book that isn't a spoiler that we can talk about, although I guess we are talking about spoilers, so we can talk about the other one as well. The main one is with a robot, with an AI. So we've got Jenks and we've got Lovey, who is the ship itself, and they're in love. Which this did not strike me as odd at all, because I went through my Anne McCaffrey phase. I've been there. And then I loaned it to other people, and they were like, what just happened? So yes, in that sense, I feel like maybe LGBTQ read is important, because I got a lot of people being like, I didn't see that coming over there, or this other one over here. And I was like, no, I saw both of those coming. Okay, so. Do we want to talk about the book's other romance or not? Or do
yeah,
we
we
leave
can
it?
totally do that.
Okay.
Seems fun.
Do you want to date the lizard lady? Yes, yes. No, so Rosemary ends up dating Sissix, who is, and am I describing her correctly as a lizard lady? Is that, because I know that there is, the technical name for her species is the Andrisks,
Yeah.
with two A's, right?
Yeah. Although I guess because in the book they made a point of saying that I really love there's this one like a side chapter where they were talking about, I think Rosemary checks out a book when she starts working on the Wayfarer about interspecies relations, and they were talking about how like what pronouns you should use. Oh, I just got off topic.
No, continue. I was very interested in this off topic. Please.
No, it was like my brain was going this way and then I forgot what my off topic part was.
I can respect that. I've been there. All right.
Anyways, keep going.
Oh, no. Yes, okay. Right, so Rosemary, who is our lovely girl fresh off the farm, or in this case, girl fresh out of the big city pretending to be fresh off the farm. There we go, exactly. That was perfect. That was much more perfect than what I said. Anyway, so we've got her, so she's the one who's sort of the reader's eye into the whole situation on the ship, because everybody else has lived there for a while and is used to it and has formed their opinions. Rosemary's just entering into it with an open-minded, I'm here to translate view and I'm here to do paperwork view, but she's also learning everything as the reader is. And so one of the first characters she encounters is Sissix, who is an Andrisk, which is a bipedal reptilian race that has a lot of negative stereotypes about them. When Rosemary first meets Sissix, her brain does this whole, oh, cold-blooded and promiscuous. Wait, that's racist. I'm racist. Okay, let's try again. Yes, and then she gets the book and it helps her out. Yeah. Oh, we're back to the book. I'm so glad.
I think that was the direction I was going and you finished it for me.
Oh, good, cool. We looped backwards. It's perfect. That's what we wanted. But yeah, toward the end of the novel, we get to visit Sissix's home, and she's the navigator on this ship. I was doing my little map out, right? Like Ashby, if we're doing Firefly Direct, Sissix corresponds pretty closely to the second in command in Firefly, in that she's like friendly and she takes care of her people, and she's also going to get the job done, and like cares about people but is no nonsense about it. And then you meet her among the Andrisks, and they are just a gigantic cuddle pile of lizards. And I liked how this was backed up with the explanation that, yeah, okay, so they hatch from eggs, so they're not hugely attached to their young. There's a lot of like autonomy given to children, and they molt, which means that sometimes they just get irritable, and they have that understanding that humans are going to get irritable, and it's explained as, oh, they're molting, and then it makes sense to them. Or in this case, they're cold-blooded, and so they warm up by being around each other, and so they are connected to each other in that way, and they have this family structure. I know I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm going to ask to fix it. Also, hello, Ragu. Ragu likes the Andrisks as well. That's why she's here now. But they have feather families, which are the families you choose for yourself as an adult. They have egg families, who are the ones they have egg family, hatch family, feather family. Do I have that right?
I don't know, probably.
Merlin says no. Merlin says I got it wrong. I know feather family is right. But feather family is your chosen family, and I think the dedication of the book is actually either dedication or acknowledgments is to the author's feather family, which was cool to see. And feather family is platonic and romantic bonds between adults of any kind, and it can reform and dissolve and reform. It's about the found family. Anyway, Rosemary sees this and sees how casually affectionate Sussex is allowed to be around other Andricks, and approaches Sussex and is like, hey, just in case, I am here with wine. And Sussex is like, what is the mammal doing? I don't understand what the mammal is. Oh, is this a mammal thing? Okay, yes, absolutely, yes, fabulous, we can date. So I thought that scene was funny, especially where she was like, wait, clothes mean something to you mammals. You changed clothes. Oh, we're on a date.
I love that scene. That was great.
It made me laugh. It was fantastic. Also, props to Rosemary. Lots of character development from the very shy translator in the first bit to the more bold, like willing to ask somebody out in the second half. Yes, so those are the two romances. What did you think of them? Because I thought they were both adorable, absolutely adorable, and yeah, so that was where I landed.
No, I liked all the romances. I liked all the bonds in that book. Like, I felt like you mentioned this earlier, that found family, which I thought was really interesting. And I loved the way the author like set it up, that everybody was so respectful of each other and cared about each other. I was like, that is great. I love reading about this.
That is true. I liked it. I think that was one of my favorite bits, is that it's not just about, okay, here's the romance and here's the crewmates. It's also, okay, you have all of these platonic bonds that are arguably just as strong or stronger. Like you've got Jinx and Kizzy, who are just left hand, right hand of our lovely little tech team, and like are the worst, and I love them both. Their introductory scene where they can't manage to be polite even for one dinner, but they are both extremely caring despite having no social tact. And then you have like Ashby and how he cares for everyone on the crew. You have Rosemary's growing friendship with Jinx, especially, where she grows to trust him and confide in him because he's crazy observant before she gets to talk to some of the others. And then there's Corbin.
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 Time to talk about Corbin, because there's a big plot point about him.
There is a big plot point. Do we have time? Corbin sucks. Corbin doesn't suck. That's reductive. Corbin is the token crew member that nobody likes. And at first I was sad for him, and then I realized he was also the token crew member who didn't like anyone. And then I was sad. And then plot happened with Corbin, and I was like, oh no.
Do we have time? I
think we have a little time. We've got a little more time. So, okay, let's talk about it.
Okay, so major spoiler, but that's okay if you've read the book already, or if you want.
If you haven't read it, go read it. Now, then come back.
But one of the species that I really thought were really interesting, I'm not gonna say their name right.
Ohan.
Yeah, Ohan the Cynet.
Cynet. The species, and let me see if I get this right. They have a dedication to splitting their mind. So that they develop, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like they get infected by the virus that gives them, like, I guess in this case, magical space powers, but which I thought was really interesting. And then once they like they view the virus as another living being, it seemed like. So it's like once they got infected, they were a pair. So it wasn't just one being, it was two. And I
Right.
think they referred to them as they while it
Because
happened.
there were two of them.
But the plot point with Corbin that I thought was really interesting was when he um, decided to cure Ohan. So
Ohan was dying, for
yeah,
reference. You find this out early in the story. So Ohan is dying. The whole species dies early because of the virus. And Corbin cures him, so he stays alive. And I use the word him in that case because as soon as he cures Ohan, Ohan is no longer a them. Ohan is now a him, a very disoriented, slightly pissed off him.
yeah,
Yeah, what did you think about that? I was so conflicted. And I think I was supposed to be really conflicted at
yeah,
that moment. Like, it felt really jarring to me after how much the rest of the book emphasized caring about other people and respecting their beliefs regardless. And then you have this circumstance where it's like, here's Ohan, whose religious beliefs in this case, because it is basically a religion on Cyanat, whose religious beliefs in respect for the life of others will not allow him to kill a virus that is killing him. And so I guess I should switch back to them because we're talking about Ohan prior. So they didn't want anything to happen. And Corbin's just like, this is how I'm going to show that I'm a member of the crew now and trying to be a team player.
yeah.
And it was not great.
No, it wasn't. So, like, I really like the fact that you said that I feel like we were supposed to be conflicted. Because I was super conflicted, and now I'm like, maybe that was the point, was just to feel conflicted about his choice to cure somebody who did not want to be cured.
I've seen a lot of the reviews of the book talk about this, that address that feels like the moment when the book fails in its premise to be accepting, that it has the crew that really wants Ohan to kill the virus, then Corbin does it so they don't have to feel guilty. And so you get to be bad Corbin, but still have a living Ohan. And I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily the case, though. I think it would have been very easy to leave it where nobody interfered with Ohan and everyone grieved about it, and that would be an answer. Or for Ohan to want to be cured and get cured, and that would be an answer. And instead you have a very ambiguous situation that Corbin creates that kind of is going to stick with the reader and just feel just the wrong way for a little while longer there.
I wonder if it was part of the way to make the book stay feel good. Because I feel
Yeah,
like as humans reading this book, there are some characters that you won't necessarily vibe with as much. So I feel like when Lovely dies at the end of the book, people aren't as upset as they would have been about Ohan, and that was a huge spoiler, but at this point we've had so many
at this
spoilers.
point we've had so many spoilers. Also, I was very upset about Lovey.
Were you?
Like, like, so Lovey got rebooted, and Lovey didn't remember all Lovey's memories, and I just sort of curled up into a little burrito, and I didn't read until the next day because it made me so sad.
I was upset. Like I thought it was, but I feel like her character wasn't fleshed out enough that I probably would have been more upset if Ohan had died. I would have been like, oh no. But like with Lovey, I was like, this sucks. But I wasn't.
That's fair. It wasn't heartbreaking. And to a certain extent, I mean, she is AI, so there is someone who comes back. It's just not Lovey.
Yeah.
It's just Lovelace instead.
I wonder if that's just me as a reader with my own biases, where I'm like, oh, Lovey's death didn't affect me as possibly Ohan's death. But anyways.
You need to read the second book so I can hear your opinion on it, because as long as we're talking spoilers, that covers the adventure of Lovelace 2.0. So I'd be interested in seeing what you think of it, because it gets down to Lovelace 2.0, who is a very different person, for lack of a better term, and as you know from the ending of the book, is no longer a ship. So that it's a very different atmosphere. We get to go planet-side with Pepper, so
nice.
Exciting.
That is exciting.
And I know we're running low on time, but before we go, who is your favorite character in this story before we go?
For some reason, I couldn't even explain it. I liked Ashby a lot. I don't know.
He's good, though. He's like the very diplomatic, fair-minded leader there. Like,
he's not that exciting. So I feel like most people wouldn't be like, oh, he's my favorite. But I was like,
kind of the Shepherd, though. If we're doing the Mass Effect comparison, he's kind of Commander Shepherd on this group.
like Paragon.
Yeah, he's the Paragon. That makes sense. I liked Jinx. I thought Jinx was fun. I thought Jinx was a trash panda as well. And I enjoy trash panda characters. He's just over there like, everything about this is a mess. I'm going to go be counselor by day and then go flirt with the computer by night. Everything's fine. And I'm like, oh, Jinx. So I really hope. I haven't read the third book in the series, and I know it follows a different set of characters. But I hope it at least references what happened to Jinx.
That would be nice. Do they not reference any of the characters in the second book? Because that makes me sad.
They reference them a little, but not extensively, because it is primarily a coming of age for Lovelace 2.0 as she figures out what it means, and she does go by she, what it means to be on Earth in a human body and be decidedly not human. So that's something for her to work with, which is a trip. So there's some mention, but there's a lot of new characters introduced as well, and that's a complication.
Okay. So it's like Dragon Age and not Mass Effect.
Yeah, which is why I liked it.
Perfect. It was just as far as like characters carrying over, not as far as
yes,
story.
It's like Dragon Age, not Mass Effect. It's Dragon Age 2 to Dragon Age Origins. You get cameos. You don't get like exact.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess that's all the time that we have today. Thank you everybody for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Elizabeth and I just like talked about this book like excessively. I feel like we went all over this book, but not everything that we wanted to talk about, which is sad. But you should just read the book because it's great, and then you'll know what we wanted to talk about.
And you should ask us questions in the comments, and we'll answer, because that's how we do.
Let us know if you liked the book, if you did read it, or if you feel like now you want to read the book because you've heard so many good things about it.
Or if you yourself would never date a computer, that too. Just
it's one of the contentious points of this book that gets brought up. Like, would you date a computer? Would you date other alien species? Let's see. So for those of you who haven't, our Summer of Imagination has started, so make sure to go to our website, auroralibrary.org, and register online. You get to read books and do lots of activities and get prizes, which I think is great. I feel like since you're already reading books, you might as well get rewarded for it. It's super
I agree
easy.
with that.
Yeah, super easy. And next week, join us for our mystery reads on the 11th at 1 p.m. on Thursday. That's where we read the first chapter of a book, and you guys can guess what book it is. And then next week, for our next Reader's Corner, we're going to be discussing a fairy tale themed book. So I'm going to be doing that one as well with Nicole. So I don't know if you've watched the other Reader's Corner, but it's going to be with Nicole. We will be discussing The Huntress of Thornback Forest by Melanie Dickerson. So I'm excited about that book.
I'm excited because I haven't read it, so I'm going to watch you to see if I want to read it.
Perfect. So everybody, thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great day.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.